As we enter the final week of the regular season for the Carolina Hurricanes, a lot has happened. Alexander Nikishin signs his ELC. The Hurricanes clinched their 7th consecutive playoff appearance, and Seth Jarvis having another career season. Ryan Henkel from the Hockey News joins as we talk about all of that here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. Also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. As I said at the top of the show, we got Ryan Henkel from the Hockey News joining me today. If you're listening to the audio side, but if you're on the YouTube side of things, you can see his very awesome background behind him. Very, very awesome. But Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun and way overdue to get you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always crazy busy, so but I make the time for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So let's just kick it off. I know the big news that everyone was really excited for the end of last week was Alexander Nikishin signing his 2-year ELC after his season with Scott in the KHL kind of ended. An interesting deal, $832,500 for this season and next season with a signing bonus of $185,000. A lot of people were wondering why 2 instead of 3, and I mean, I think when you come looking at his age, that kind of plays a factor into it as well. And also I know Eric Tulsky kind of mentioned that he will be a 10.2C player, which means that no one can offer a shit him. But what does that mean for the Hurricanes looking at it's a 2-year ELC with basically 1 full season next year, what that could lead into possible future extensions, which we know is going to happen eventually.
Yeah, I think it gives the Hurricanes, that at least a year to kind of give him that runway, see what he's going to do, how he's going to produce, fit in, play in the NHL, all that. It also gives the player, plenty of incentive to get closer to that big payday. I mean, he's leaving the KHL, place where he could make a lot of money. He's the captain of Scott, big name player, probably one of the biggest players in Russia. And he's coming over here. So 2-year deal gives him the chance to, get quicker to that big payday that they're all thinking about. I think like Kirill Kaprizov is another player I think of, comes over, signs 2-year ELC and gets that big major payday. It's probably going to be pretty similar to Nikishin if he kind of bodes true to how many are portraying him to be coming in the next coming of the great defenseman.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a crazy thing too. You look at his career, 157 points, 122 of those assists, and 193 regular season games. Only played 3 years with Ska, but arguably one of the best. I mean, he is probably the best defenseman ever in the league. Broke a lot of records doing what he did over there. He's, wanted to come over to, play in the NHL. He's excited to play for the Canes, wants to do whatever he can to help Rod and the team in any way possible. And, of course, we all know we're waiting on visas with the States and, now with Canada for the fact that the Hurricanes are done at home. And, of course, their last 2 games had to be in Canada against Montreal and Ottawa. So that, that's something to kind of work out through as well. But a lot of questions that people have been kind of asking is, okay, does he have the opportunity to play the last 2 games, if any, and what does that factor into the playoffs? What are your thoughts on that whole kind of situation with visas and, because I know you have to be eligible for the playoffs if you play 1 game in the regular season?
Yeah, so he could still play in the playoffs even if he doesn't get into the regular season. But the whole visa situation is, I'm making the joke right now. It's Montreal is not locked in yet, so I'm sure their government is petitioning. Delay that. Don't let Carolina come in with this guy in.
Yeah,
we got our Russian guy in. Don't let their other Russian guy in.
Exactly.
Let's make them wait a little bit longer. But I think the Hurricanes are really, whether it's because Tolsky's mentioned this, whether it's in the A or the NHL, they just want to see what his skill level is amongst players that they know the skill level of. In the KHL, he's a really good player, and there's players in the KHL that you're familiar with, but there's a lot of players that you just don't know the skill level of. You don't know kind of how that skill gap, bigger ice, all that stuff kind of plays into what this player is available. So even if he plays in the AHL, it's not like a prove it thing, like, this guy's got to be better. It's to put him in there and to be like, all right, we know how good all these guys are. how does he look playing with all of these guys? And that's kind of more so what they want, even if it's at the NHL level, even better, because they have an even better handle of that and understanding.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it's, they really just want to see like what is his skill level compared to guys that we know 100% what the skill level is, what the expectations are. And that's going to make the decision whether or not kind of we see Nikishin come playoff time, because a lot of people are want him to come into the playoffs,
right.
Whether or not that happens without an injury, it begs the question of, it's hard to take someone else's job without knowing exactly what the player is at this point.
Right, exactly. That actually just goes perfectly to my next question of that's one of the main things that, I've mentioned, right after the contract is signed of who does he take over for? And I even mentioned he's probably going to be a healthy scratch. And some people are like, that makes no sense. Why would you do that? Well, you're talking about a guy who's never played in North America, very different style to, outside of the KHL, just European hockey in general, bigger ice, bigger, style of play. And the NHL is like the premier league in all of hockey. And like you said, who do you take out of the lineup? You're not taking out Dmitry Orlov, who's in the last year of his contract. You're not taking Brett Burns out, who's been a staple as the top, defensive pairing with Jacob Slavin for the last 2 seasons. And, you got Chatfield, you got, Gostisbehere and Walker, and you also got Scott Moore as your 7th D-man. It's like, where do you fit Nikishin in this whole thing? Plus, he's got to get practices under a belt. You can't just expect a guy to be like, all right, here you go, the KHL, boom, immediately. Welcome to the NHL. Oh, and you're playing the New Jersey Devils. Like, that's a tall order to ask for.
Yeah, and it's I'm lucky I'm not a coach making these kind of hard decisions. These could impact the entire season, these kind of decisions.
Yeah.
But I think, it begs the question because, like I said, those are a lot of fans that are, frustrated with Burns and Orlov. Obviously, you see it all over social media. They're calling for them to be out of the lineup. And, it's one. I feel like it's one of those cases where they do make mistakes. I think the NHL is a league of mistakes. I think you score goals because the other team makes mistakes. That's just kind of the nature of it. And the league's so fast, so quick. It's you can't be a perfect player. Jacob Slavin's pretty close, but it's not gonna go the same way every time. I think if you look at the full body 60 minutes, full season, Burns and Orlov more often than not are on the more positive ends of things. They just have mistakes that just end up on the camera glaring, and they're like, wow, that was really bad.
Yeah.
And that happens if you look at any team. So I think, but these are guys that know the systems. They know how to play playoff hockey. They know, what the Hurricanes system entails. And that's something Nikishin doesn't. I mean, how many defensemen have come through this system that we've seen have a slow, role of getting up to what it means to play Hurricanes hockey? I mean, Brent Burns took a while before he got, really good that second year with the Hurricanes. Dougie Hamilton, Brady Shea, Jake Gardner, if we want to keep pulling it back.
Orlov and everyone else too. Yeah,
the amount of defensemen that takes a long time for them to really get comfortable in the Carolina Hurricane systems. And I think it could be a similar thing with Nikishin. You can't expect him to come in and just produce the way he did in the KHL and the NHL immediately. Could he? Sure, but you can't rely on that.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. And that's why it's like, like you said, if it's in the A with the Wolves who play the exact same system and stuff like that with, what they're going on down there. And I mean, the Wolves would not be mad at all to get a guy like him right before because now they're back in the Calder playoffs after missing the last 2 years. So that'll be a great addition to them. And of course, with all their, studs of Bradley Nadeau and what Ryan Suzuki's been doing and Justin Robidoux, who made his debut recently too. So adding Nikishin wouldn't be a bad option, but I mean, where the defense is at right now, it's not like the Hurricanes are hurting for defensemen. I think when you look at the Hurricanes, their depth across the board is what I think pretty much almost every team would love to have right now going into the playoffs.
And I will toss one that's not meant. Shane Gosper is right now dealing with a little back injury, lower body issue or upper body, whatever, middle body.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Somewhere on the body.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at his numbers, the power play is kind of taking a hit, and he's actually the lowest producing 5-on-5 defenseman in the entire team. He has the least amount of 5-on-5 points out of any other blue liner on the Carolina Hurricanes team. Could he be an option to come out? Because for someone like Nikishin, who's to say? But it could. I mean, that's a guy if you look at, that's a potential issue there because he's brought in to be an offensive defenseman. If he's not producing, is he the weaker link?
Yeah, definitely a lot of questions and something with Tim Gleason, with him taking care of the defense, and of course with Rod Burnmore being Rod Burnmore. There's a lot to figure out, and like you said, we don't have to figure it out. We're just the guys who just have to watch and report on it. That's really about it. Yeah, it's definitely nice for sure. But the Hurricanes, like I said, are going to the playoffs for their 7th consecutive season, especially in the Rod Brind'Amour era. So we'll definitely talk about all of that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking for a snack that both is delicious and nutritious? Crackin' a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. At the end of segment 1, kind of hinted at the fact that the Hurricanes are making their 7th consecutive playoff appearance in the Rod Brind'Amour era, going 7 for 7, with the possibility of going 7 for 7 once again in the first round. Ryan, for you, like, what does it mean for this Hurricanes team to go from, people kind of were down on them at the start of the season. Maybe, they're going to kind of have a fallback, maybe go for a wild card, but, are locked in as the second team in the Metro, 1 point away from another 100-point season. What does that mean to look at a Hurricanes team that were kind of doubted, but then kind of showed everyone never doubt a Rod Brind'Amour team?
I mean, I think it just goes to show that they're greater. They're always the sum of their parts. It's not one guy here or there. It's a whole team effort. And it's always been like that ever since Rod Brind'Amour took over. It's a team effort. It's 21 guys on the ice doing the same thing every day, kind of pushing the pace, doing everything right. And it's, you look down. It's easy to say you like, oh, okay, they lose Brady Shea and Brett Pesce, who were like a really good shutdown pair, really good transitional pair. They could do pretty much everything in all 3 zones. You lose Teuvo Teravainen, who was a big piece, of the offense. Again, penalty killer as well, doing things like, the losing Jake Gensel was like, okay, they lost like a top end player, but they were in the playoffs before they got Jake Gensel. So that one was kind of was a throw-in type of. Yeah, I never agreed with that commentary. I'm like, yeah, sure, sucks to lose a player like that, but it wasn't a staple. But the core was really the same. I mean, you had Jacob Slavin, you had pretty much the whole defense of Jalen Chatfield, Dmitry Orlov, Brent Burns, you had Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, Andrei Svechkin. You have all these, Jordan Staal, obviously. Yeah. You had all these pieces, and it's like, sure, they lost some players here or there, but this is a team that plays a team game. They want 4 lines to roll. They want to play the same way all up and down throughout the lineup. So it was kind of a jump to say that this team was going to, from all like the national folks or whatever, was saying like this team's going to miss the playoffs and whatnot. Because it was, you looked around the league and it was like, did you really see Washington bouncing back the way that they did?
No.
Like, if you looked, you were like, did the Rangers get a lot better in the offseason, or were they just kind of the same with like the Devils? Like, it was all just kind of, these teams were all just kind of pretty much the same place where they were. And it was, it didn't really look like Carolina was going to take a step back, sure, in terms of maybe on ice production, but same team, same game. At the end of the day, it was silly to me, but if you're a national talking head, you just want to get clicks and you want to be a contrarian, you want to be interesting, and I get that. I get, it's part of the business.
Yeah, definitely trying to get, want to be cute, hot takes, whatever you want to call it. It is what it is, but it definitely says a lot where you look at this team. We're talking a 7th rendition of a Rod Brind'Amour team that's gone from, we all remember the 18-19 season, ragtag guys coming over from the last regime. You had like very early additions of, Slavin, Pesce, Aho, all those guys, Andrei Svechnikov and stuff like that. And then you look at, they get into the playoffs, make a Cinderella run to the Eastern Conference Final, which no one really saw coming. Now you get another Eastern Conference Final not that long ago, multiple playoff appearances and stuff like that. And you even look before that, you had 5 playoff appearances total between 97 and 2009, which is crazy to think about. And now we all remember the dark ages of, being that team who was too good for a lottery pick, but not good enough for the playoffs. For you, what is it about a Rod Brind'Amour, Tom Dundon, now Eric Tulsky, what was Don Waddell? Like, what's this regime shown in just building this roster slowly over time, but being a perennial contender for a playoffs every single season after a so 5-year run and then 10 years of just consistently missing?
I think it shows a consistency. Like I think throughout the organization, there's consistency in kind of the train of thought from Rod Brendamore up to the general manager, up to the owner Tom Dundon. I think you're seeing a very cohesive organization, which crazy to think if you go 10 years back to call the Carolina Hurricanes a cohesive organization.
Yeah.
It also shows foresight. I think they have the foresight to understand that you could push all your chips in, and people argue for that. And I think last year was a push your chips in kind of move. I mean, you're really going to get better than you did with that defense. Adding Jake Gensel, Evgeny Kuznetsov, like that was a really push your chips in kind of moment.
Yeah.
And I think, but they have a lot of foresight where they're drafting well. They're not just throwing away picks for rental third liners, fourth liners. Like they have the foresight to build these teams to be contenders, to be competitive. Because at the end of the day, I mean, the playoffs. I mean, how often do we see like, if we look at a team like, oh, that's hands down the most talented, skilled team in the playoffs, and how often do they win? I mean, it's once in a blue moon. I would think it's not every time. So I think as a you just want to build a contender. If you get to the playoffs, that's what matters. And you touched on it. We talked to Rod a little bit about this yesterday. It's like, is it a little? You want the fan base to get spoiled at this point. There's a lot of reactionaries. Like they raise the bar. And that's 100%. You got to be better than you were the previous year. You've got to always strive to be better. And, taking steps back shouldn't be acceptable, quote unquote. But you also have to understand it's a whole lot better to be in the playoffs than to be mid, completely and utterly mid, with no hope.
Yeah, no, yeah. We are going to long runs like the Sabres are on now. I think they're their 14th consecutive season. And it's like, Montreal still isn't in yet, but they've been fighting. Ottawa just got in after not being in for multiple seasons. So yeah, it's definitely an area where it's like you're loving to see the consistency. Yeah, do you want to hit that next level? Of course. I mean, everyone knows that the Hurricanes, their final goal is to get the franchise's second ever Stanley Cup. But like you said too, you see them slowly building over time. Like who would have thought that the Jeff Skinner trade would turn into Peter Kochetkov and Alexander Nikishin, or a trade with the Maple Leafs would go for Patrick Marleau to go back, and then we get Seth Jarvis at 13, which is just crazy to think. And then, like you said, you look at the draft with, at the time with, Waddell and with Tulsky being pro scout and Darren York being the, amateur scouts and all what they've done, and gone and just drafted all these guys. And, like, I don't think anyone saw Jackson Blake being a sensational rookie in his first year, 17 goals now. And a lot of people projected him to be like, oh, he might be okay, wins the Hobie Baker in North Dakota. But you definitely see where like that slow trend of building up has gotten there. And that's just, are the fans spoiled? Yeah. I mean, of course, when you look at a team that's done what they've done now, but I think with the roster construction, knowing where the direction is with this team, and now you have a riches of a roster that's, William Carrier is back, and now you got certain guys that might be extra scratches who could do something in the league. Of course, now we look at the trades this year. How about Taylor Hall, Mark Jankowski, Logan Stankoven? Like, talk about getting just like the greatest of luck to add those three and get the production that we've seen out of them. Like, what have those three this year really shown you of just the things are just all lining up perfectly for the Canes?
Yeah, I mean, pro scouting has been a really big boom for the Hurricanes. I talk about the cohesiveness of like the organization. I mean, the pro scouting staff being able to understand the kinds of players. Because I mean, even before I touch on them, I'll go back. You talk about like Eric Robinson's been like a perfect fit in Carolina. Will Carrier has been a perfect fit in Carolina.
Exactly.
Like, Jack Roslovic has scored 20 plus goals, and who would have seen that coming?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just kind of good. But like you touch on, you go like Taylor Hall has been an exceptional player for the Hurricanes. It seems like a rejuvenated player. I think he had a really good second season in Boston. I guess technically first full season, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Show that he still got it. He still, can do it. And then had that major knee injury in Chicago. It's kind of been middling. They were healthy scratching him, fourth line. They weren't giving him any chance really. And the Hurricanes looked and said, no, this is still a player that can do something. He comes to Carolina. He's playing in the second line. He's producing. He's making the power play work again.
Oh yeah.
Who thought they could get that off the floor?
Yeah. Who would have thought that at the time?
So he's been really great. And he's just a great guy in the room too. I mean, he's just well thought of, like calm, collective. I think I see him as like a really good leader kind of go. And Rod's talked about him adapting to like a new role and kind of accepting this as he gets older and kind of the role he needs to play, and I think he's really fit into that.
Yeah.
I think Logan Stankoven is just a bulldog. He's like Seth Jarvis minus 2 more inches.
Yes, it's like who would have thought we have a shorter Seth Jarvis?
Seth Jarvis because he's relentless. I mean, this kid is just all over especially the offensive zone. He's just all over it, hounding pucks, just working the corners, taking things, shooting. Like the last 2 games, he's shooting. He gets that puck. He's shooting.
He's not afraid. He's like just green light, just go all the time. I don't care where it's at. Just shoot the puck on the. Hey, good things happen when you do. So why not?
And he's been a really good player for them as of late. And then we get to Mark Jankowski. I always like to nod to Corey Lavalette, Mark Jan Gretzky, as he likes to call him.
That was pretty good. Gotta give Corey credit on that one. That was pretty solid.
But I mean, who would have thought 8 goals in 16 games? I guess 17 now for Mark Jankowski. It's an absurd stat. But I mean, you looked at his coming into the Hurricanes, he had like a 14% career shooting percentage, having played like however many games across like 8 seasons, and it's like he didn't have a ton, but you're like 14% for a fourth liner. That's weirdly high, and it's now showing why, because he's finishing. He's going like bar down. He's sniping top corner. This guy just knows how to shoot pucks, and it's his 8 goals. I was looking at this. 8 goals is more than he's had in 5 of his past 7 seasons. Other than his first 2 seasons in Calgary, 8 is more than he's scored in any other season he's played.
It's nuts. And the fact, too, that the Hurricanes also got him locked up for next season under $1 million. So you're like, well, great. Plenty of riches for your 4th line center that you can have for next year with a full training camp and season.
Yeah, and it's it's 4. He's on the penalty kill. Like when Jordan Stahl was out, he was top penalty kill.
Oh, absolutely killed on the penalty
kill. Jordan
kill.
Monarch was out. He was on top penalty kill with Jordan Stahl. Yeah, he's so versatile, and that's what you need. If a 4th liner, you need him to be versatile. You need him to fit in anywhere you want. And if he's going to score 8 goals, that's probably 8 more than you thought you were getting. To be honest with you.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then, and hopefully, if the Hurricanes extend Taylor Hall, boom, there's another top 6 guy right there. You got Stankoven and you got Mark Jankowski for next year with both of those guys under contracts, and you got Hall back. Not a bad return for what everyone thought was a decreased, whatever you want to call it, with the trade deadline of the Hurricanes had. Yeah, sure. We'll sneak in Mark Jankowski 2 hours after the deadline's done and get 8 goals out of this guy off the rip.
We were in our press conference with Eric Tolsky, and they were like, "Oh, he'll be 1 more minute." He's like just on a trade call, and all of us thinking we're like, "Okay, it's the Mikko Rantanen and Dallas Stars trade call going on." He comes in, we talk to him, all that. Doesn't even mention Mark Jankowski once. I remember I was in the car driving home. I got home and I looked at my phone, scrolling through Twitter, and I was like, "Mark Jankowski." I was like, "What?" What? When did this happen?
Yeah, right. You're like, that's how it was too. Because I'm doing all this stuff, and next thing you know, 2 hours later, it's like, huh? Okay, cool.
He's been one of the best players since the trade deadline. So
yeah, hey, who would have thought?
That
works. Pro scouting just being underrated as usual for the Carolina Hurricanes. But one guy who's not been underrated this year is Seth Jarvis. So stick around as we'll talk about Jarvie here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Scaling your business requires a right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talents across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. As we stated before, the guy who's not underrated is Seth Jarvis. I mean, Ryan, you're looking at a year where he's missed 7 games due to re-aggravating a shoulder injury that he had last year, which is crazy. I think he played over 6 games with a torn-up shoulder and all that. Misses 7 games. Still now set a new career high in assists as of last night for his 4th point in 4 games, now at 35. He's tied his career high in points with 67. Is 2 away from setting a new goal total because he's now sitting at 32. And he's done all this in 8 fewer games with 2 games left. For you, just how would you like summarize or look at a fourth season of Seth Jarvis just showing of why he, in my opinion, is a cornerstone superstar franchise player?
He's just a gamer. At the end of the day, he's just a gamer, and like,
yeah,
that's a guy who he's a guy who cares, and he's a guy who wants to get better, and like that's really what it comes down to in this league. Like, you can have the talent, but if talent doesn't work hard, it doesn't matter. Like, Seth Jarvis wants to get better. He will do whatever it takes. So like we're saying, like, he's a penalty killer. Like, he worked his way to becoming a penalty killer, and now he's one of the Kings' top killers. 5 shorthanded goals on the season, ties a franchise record, tied for the league lead. Like, this guy is just he just is relentless. He's on the forecheck, he's on the back check. However many times I've seen Seth Jarvis either win pucks in corners or like break up, 2-on-1s or whatever with his back checks. Like, this guy is just a relentless force. He doesn't shy away from anything. He goes to battle in front of the net. He can snipe the puck one time. However you want him to score, he's doing it. He's just relentless all the puck. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's just a gamer. Like, he just wants to be good. He wants to win, and he wants to succeed. And that's just that drive, that determination. It's combining with the talent.
Yeah, no, it really is. Because you look at the sophomore season, 39 points. There were some people who were like, is it a sophomore slump? What is it? Is this, did he hit a ceiling? And it's like, you look back at it, no, he was just developing his defensive style of the game because he was known for scoring, being an offensive guy, but he wanted to be a well-rounded player. And of course, what better place to do that with a guy like Rod Brind'Amour, who's won back-to-back Secchi's back in the day, a guy who dominates on the faceoff. I mean, even Seth has won some faceoffs for the Hurricanes this year, and not just in the offensive zone, but neutral in the in their own zone. He's become a complete player that you saw his sophomore year. Follows it up last season with a career year of 30-plus goals and assists, 67 points. Now he's doing it again this year, even on fewer numbers. And the thing is, while his game-winning goals number is a little bit down in his power play goals, but he's like 2 points away from setting new career high in power play points. And like you said, career high in shorthanded goals and shorthanded points as well. Like, even if there are some numbers that are a little bit down compared to others, he finds a way to extend his overall usefulness as the Swiss Army knife in certain categories as well. Like, it's in the fact that he also was on Team Canada this year for the Four Nations, and a lot of people are questioning why him. Well, you see why he was selected. Like you said, he's a gamer. Like, what team would not want that?
Yeah, versatility too. I mean, he's so important to this team. Like, every situation, he's on the penalty kill, he's on the power play, he's in 6-on-5, he's on, he's on the 6-on-5 the other way. Like, any situation where the team needs someone to step up, Seth Jarvis is one of the guys they're going to call on, and that's huge to say about a 22-year-old, 23-year-old now. However,
23-year-old guy, a 23-year-old guy who just got an 8-year contract. It's like, thank you very much. I'll take that.
Like I said, he's just, and on top of it, just everyone knows how fun Jarvie is. Just
so great.
Quote-wise, talking-wise, he's just he loves life. I would say that he's just a kind of guy who just enjoys life. Like, he loves what he's doing. He wants to get better, but he's enjoying it, and that also blossoms so much more out of it. Because if you enjoy what you're doing, you can really push yourself to want to do more because you're living the dream. I would say Jarvie would very well agree that that's what he's doing in this kind of role.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. And yeah, like you said, you're talking about a guy who on ice is fantastic. Off ice, I mean, everyone loves him. I mean, he's an absolute quote machine. I mean, we all heard it, him and his two dads, or, heck no, and I'm paraphrasing, he doesn't want to be a GM. Great question by Corey Lavilla. That was absolutely fantastic. But and also too, like, you see why he got that 8-year less than $8 million per season contract. Like, they gave him a great contract that works both for him and the Hurricanes, and with the cap going up, what's that type of flexibility giving the team to go and still build around him and Aho and Kotkaniemi, Svechnikov, Kochekov, all of these guys that we got on this roster? What does that contract mean for him with the stability and the flexibility, even with the cap going up this offseason for the Canes?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got a young guy from Winnipeg, and this is more money than he's ever probably dreamed of. So right away, it's kind of like he's like, hey, heck yeah.
Yeah, and go gets an Audi. It's like, I just need a new car. I'm bored. Why not?
But no, it also like with the deferred payments and all that, like it just every dollar, the Hurricanes can utilize to get just one more player, one more kind of extra guy. We saw it with, they go into the trade deadline. However many times guys are just going up and down. Riley Stillman recalled. Riley Stillman sent back. Ty Smith recalled. Ty Smith sent back.
It's like, what are we doing? What?
They never put like Anderson on or Carey on LTIR unless because you can kind of go in and out of LTIR. So like they would do it if they had like emergency recall, they had to get a guy up, but they would never like stay in there. They never sustain it because they're just trying to get that little cap space just as much as they can. And, this organization has got a lot of smart guys, a lot of number crunchers that make every dollar count. And so contracts like that, Jacob Slavens is a deferred payment. Seth Jarvis is a deferred payment. Special Host is a team-friendly deal for how good he is, even though he's not going to be the team goal leader this season. Jarvis is going to sneak that one by him, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, and you're going to rub it in his face, too. Because...
So I got a fun one, too. Seth Jarvis has 32 goals. You know who else has 32 goals on the season? That's as many goals as Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Wyatt Johnson, Mikko Rantanen. Seth Jarvis has as many goals as all of the players.
So basically what we're saying is that Superstar is not too far off what you would call a Seth Jarvis, especially in his fourth season, while missing games too.
I would not say. I'd also say Superstar former Hurricane Morgan Geekie also has 32 goals.
Trust me, I had a whole reason why the Hurricanes should have brought him back at the deadline. But hey, offseason's coming up. You never know. We might out Pizza the Hut once again.
They should get his winger, trade for David Pastrnak.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we're going to have all this riches of money. Just go and do it. Why not?
Austin's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. Hey, I heard Mitch Marner is going to be a free agent. Why not?
Okay.
Hey,
that circles back to we got all these good deals that Hurricanes have money now. They can do a fantasy trade like this. Like it's in the realm of possibilities because of contracts.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got Anderson coming off, you got Orlov, Burns. I mean, even if you look at Rosovic and Robinson's and Hall's contracts. I mean, if you get Robinson and Hall back, not bad at all. But you have all this, wealth of riches of a cap that's going up and a lot of contracts coming off the Bucks. So there's a lot to go around here with. Like I said, too, you mentioned Slavin's contract. My goodness. Talking about an absolute steal for the best defensive defenseman in the NHL, but sure, why not? But yeah, it's just like you said. You talk like all those guys that with Seth Jarvis, it's crazy to think that these guys making goals as guys who people consider superstar top 10 players in the NHL. And here's Seth Jarvis just doing his thing in Carolina. No big deal, but just another season of him doing his thing. And this is another quick stat before we wrap up that I found very interesting. He is now eclipsed 30th all time in franchise history on Kings and Whalers in points. He just passed Mike Rogers, who had 210 points in 2 seasons. Of course, it helps when you have 105 both years to do that, to set franchise point records. But it's crazy to think that you're talking about a guy who's in his 4th season, already top 30, and he's not that far off from getting 23rd to pass Justin Falk. I think he needs like 40-something points to be 23rd all time.
Yeah, I will say that it was hard for the Hurricanes and Whalers to keep good players kind of back in the day, because I think
also
Taylor true is in like the top 10 of points all time. I think he's like 7 or something, which is like,
you know what? I think I still have that list up,
which is like
eighth. He's 8th. Yeah, he's 8th. He's 1 point off of Jeff O'Neill for 7th. Yeah, 415 to Jeff's 416. But yeah, you look at Andrei Svechnikov 14th. Jeff Skinner is 10th with 379, which is, like you said, it's crazy thing that Jarvis is top 30, but you also look back at the franchise, you're like, there's a lot of guys where you're like,
Yeah. Shout out Jeff Skinner though. See him in the playoffs finally.
Yeah.
Maybe. Unless he gets scratched. We'll see.
Yeah. It's like, he makes it and doesn't start a game, and it's like, well, maybe next year, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just crazy. Like I said, Jarvis and what he's done. Like I said, already top 30, has a chance to go top 23 at the end of season 5, and this is his first year of an 8-year contract, and we're barely scratching the surface of what his ceiling is. Who knows what his ceiling even is? It could be one where you may never see it, because that's just how good he is, possibly.
There's potential argument that he could be the best forward on the roster. I mean, it could be a debate next season, depending on how it goes.
Yeah, there could be a reason, and like we talk about how Sebastian Aho is breaking all these records, and might have a chance to beat Eric Stahl on a bunch of those. Not far of the realm of possibility that maybe his teammate might have a case to make a case to be like, you might have it for now, but I might break a lot of those too. Yeah. So it'll definitely be a fun little internal rivalry between these two to see who will be the greatest Hurricane outside of a guy who just got his number retired this season. So that was definitely,
and that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, plenty of riches when it comes to stuff like that, but it'll definitely be fun to watch for sure. But Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been a lot of fun. Before I let you go, where can people find you and your amazing work over at the Hockey News?
You can find me on the Hockey News Carolina Hurricanes team site. Just type in the Hockey News Carolina Hurricanes in your Google box or your Bing, depending on how you like to do it. Nobody uses Bing. I'm just making a joke.
Yeah, it's like using Microsoft. It's like using Microsoft Explorer. It's like, does anyone really use it? No, yeah. I just use it to download my Google.
Yeah, so that's my site right on there. Find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, on RyanHenkel_. Find me on Blue Sky, Ryan Henkel. Sometimes I'll post on the Hurricanes team Reddit, subreddit /Canes. I'm on Threads. I just use it to post article links there, but you can still find me there. But primarily, if you're trying to follow closely team stuff, like the website or Twitter X is going to be the main spot.
Yes, definitely follow Ryan on all those. Definitely great follow as always. And so definitely, if you're looking for anything Carolina Hurricanes outside of me, Ryan's definitely one as well, doing an amazing job being right there in Raleigh. But guys, that will wrap up a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For your second listen, why don't you go check out the Locked On NHL Game Night? Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, Zach on X. Podcast is L_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin. I have link trees where you can check out all my Carolina Hurricanes articles at thehockeywriters.com. Check out my other podcasts. Well, it's the Surgecast podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and a review because I might just read on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Thumbs up to let me know if you liked it as well. Share with other KX to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed this Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes with Ryan Henkel. Have a great Tuesday, and until next time, as always, let's go, Canes.